Heyo, it's Business Pants.
Whoop.
Wednesday, half day because I have kids. What's the
Now, what
date?
is with that?
2020. What?
Somebody explain to me why in the United States our children apparently don't need to be educated on Wednesdays.
I have no idea. I'm hoping it's for teachers to like take a friggin' break. But I never had half days. I have no idea.
I mean, I'm all about it. It's fine, but this,
I probably would
although
have been in detention anyway, so what do I care?
I will say this is not on the agenda today, is it? For our show?
Half day Wednesday. All right, you want to hear the agenda? The agenda today is we're going to go into biggest data. We're going to talk about problems in Iowa, tech problems, human problems, and CEOs rule they do when your name is Elon Musk. We're going to talk a little bit about Tesla, and that's all we got.
That is a nice tight show. I like that.
Trying to tighten up here, Matt.
We are
trying
tightening
to keep
up. Keeping
it under 25 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Yeah.
I do have an announcement at the top. If you like this is Business Pants. I am Matt Moscardi. That is Damian Rollis. It is February 5th today, 2020.
Excited already.
If you like what you hear on February 5th of 2020 on Business Pants, you might like what you hear on a show called The Market Medium, which Damian and I also do, now running on Tuesdays. So the first show went out on February 4th, 2020. Go check it out. It's ESG, stakeholder capitalism, and the humans behind the market. It's fun. It's interesting to do. And subscribe and share it with your friends. All right, Damian.
Yeah. I want to add to that quickly. I subscribe to like 20 podcasts. So come on, people. Just do it.
Yeah, honestly, seriously, stop fooling around and do it. All right,
stop watching so much TV, for Christ's sake. Okay.
I'm going to card you in. Here you go.
All right. Oh, wait a minute.
You want to go back to the harp?
I don't know. I want a new harp, but I'm not going to waste time with that. I want to talk about. Okay, I don't know. Let's talk about the Democratic presidential nomination. Got started two nights ago in Iowa. For all of you listening overseas, this is where one of the two major parties elects somebody to go up against Big Baby Trump. That'll be fun. Except there was a bit of a problem 2 nights ago, Matt. In fact, it's still kind of a problem. They still haven't released the full results, and this is, at least in modern times, this is definitely a bit unprecedented. We usually receive results within a few hours. Unless it's Bush versus Gore. But so the root of the problem. First, I'm going to give you the headline. Here's the headline.
Yeah, headline.
The Iowa caucus debacle represents one of the most stunning failures of information security ever.
I mean, a little exaggerated.
That's out of CNBC. The backstory was that this failure was delivered by the same Iowa Democratic Party officials who have said for years they were ramping up their technology capabilities, convening seemingly endless security task forces to ensure foreign powers did not disenfranchise voters, and collaborating with federal agencies like the Department of Homeland Security to make sure everyone was in the loop on voting security. So here's my big question for you, Matt. What is the point of tech, really? Like, is it to replace humans? Because humans are error prone.
Look, man, I mean, I know it's annoying to wait a few extra hours to figure out like delegates from the Iowa caucus on what is going to be a race that goes on for the rest of the year. Yeah, that's annoying.
I guess so.
But do we have to call it like a catastrophe, like a spectacular failure of? I
spent a few too many hours watching this on the news yesterday, and they did, and they were overblowing this, like the whole election is ruined.
Honestly,
and I wonder,
Diebold,
is this like
the Diebold machines, which are a private corporation, also had the ultimate failures of all time in elections in this country, and we never called it a spectacular failure of democracy. I just can we get over the rhetoric?
So let's get back to my original question. Like, I mean, why? Why do we need it in the first place?
Well, I don't know. The question is, why do we need it? I think there's the sub narrative here to me, like,
Hmm.
is that ultimately it's like there's humans behind technology. It's not like we look at technology like it's some sort of savior. And the next story we're going to talk about with Twitter, kind of this is the same thing to me.
But
But this,
savior from what? From
I
ourselves?
guess, I guess it's a
And
social
and
savior.
why is it because tech has sold this idea that tech is has like transcended humanity that they're not telling people at the same time that tech is coded by humans? Like I don't like I don't get it. I don't get it.
I do know that. So the CEO of the company that produced the app, Shadow,
Yeah.
he came out in an article in Bloomberg today and was talking about how like they were terribly sorry and this was a big mistake and blah blah blah. Like there was a lot of sort of like apology tour type stuff that you have to do. But at the same breath, he actually said the app actually worked perfectly. The math was calculated perfectly. The results were perfect. We were able to verify the results. We only had problems at 9 p.m. transmitting the data to the state, database effectively. And then the state of Iowa that effectively says, well, we saw an inconsistency and everyone freaks out. I'm wondering if the app was a problem. There's also stories that the volunteers, the human volunteers
Yeah.
in the
Volunteer.
gymnasiums in the middle of Iowa who are like
Yeah.
counting their fellow community members.
Probably versions of my mom.
I
Yeah.
mean, seriously, that's exactly what it is. It's
No offense, Mom.
and
Very intelligent.
they opened the app for the very first time at the caucus. And they apparently they were having training programs and there was but this feels actually less like it's not like we expect technology to solve our problems, but the problems are often people, and this is the problem with Zuckerberg, right? Like Facebook's problem is it's like, oh, we're going to show you lying ads because you can decide for yourself. No, the problem is people. People believe lies. Like people open up their Caucus app 9 seconds before they're supposed to use it and expect the app to save them. We
Yeah,
have
well,
some
expect
construct.
it to they expect it to save them because that's basically what Silicon Valley has sold people for the last 20 years.
I mean, it's you made the
To be fair to the people.
you made the metaphor in pre-production. We were talking about like effectively Walmart has become downtown, right? Like as Walmarts move in and downtowns close, Walmart becomes downtown.
In Yeah, in states like Iowa, yes, definitely.
Well, Facebook is sort of become your community center, and
Your
we
church
look
even.
at
Yeah.
them to sort of solve our community problems, but that's not what they do.
I don't know if we look at it in that way, but I don't know that people in those states, at least in these rural areas, I don't know that they have other options really. Like I don't I think that's the problem with something like Facebook over something like Twitter, which we're going to talk about. I don't know how does this always get to Facebook, Matt?
Everything's 1 degree from Boeing or Facebook. But let's talk
Okay.
about Twitter because I think actually Twitter sort of epitomizes this in the news story that you pulled today.
Yeah, so Twitter in the news because it's saying it will ban deep fakes and other manipulated media that could cause quote unquote serious harm. And who
Yeah.
defines serious harm, Matt?
So
Sounds like Google employees.
all right. So I want to do. So I saw this story, and that's immediately what I attached myself to. Someone is defining serious harm. Okay. So
Humans.
exactly. So exactly like in Iowa, where the humans had problems with the technology, and the technology didn't understand how humans work. Twitter is showing that it doesn't understand how humans work, and simultaneously saying, well, we'll protect humans from themselves by defining what serious harm may be. So the question I asked myself when I saw that
Yeah.
is, who does that defining, right?
Who's in charge of Twitter? Yeah.
So you think of like Jack Dorsey, but Jack Dorsey has a board. They're a publicly held company, and I know we talk a lot about boards here, but the point of the
As we
board
should.
is it's full of people. And here's what I found. All right.
Yeah.
This is not a deep dive so much as a cursory look. If you like scrape the surface, this is how obvious it was.
I get in there.
So Dorsey's on the board, but 4 of the 8 board members who aren't Dorsey are actually all from Google.
All right, well, hold on. Let's start at the top here. So Dorsey does not control this company, right? Unlike Zuck. So he
Correct.
he only owns like what, like 2 or 3% of the vote.
Correct.
He's only the CEO in the sense that he's not also the chair of the board. So it seems like there's more of a democracy going on Twitter,
It
right?
does. It's because you can, if you're an investor in Twitter, you can vote on this board.
Yeah,
However,
and if you're Scott Galloway, you can write letters saying that Jack Dorsey should resign.
exactly. But those letters actually should or could have an effect. That
Right.
is, if you understand the nuances that they've put in place to protect their board and how the board was constructed. Because, like Boeing, and this isn't Boeing level kind of crap, but like Boeing, I could draw this back to one dude potentially. And guess what
Really?
committee he was on?
Just tell me.
A guy named David Rosenblatt
Oh, that's not who I thought you were going to say. Okay.
he's been on the nominating committee of Twitter since at least 2012.
Which is
As
probably the
IPO.
whole life of the company. Yeah.
He was a founder of DoubleClick. If you remember DoubleClick, they were like that terrible source of internet advertising since like 1997. They were like,
Terrible for us, but probably good for somebody.
oh, it was great. It was great. Well, Google ended up buying DoubleClick.
Okay, so good for.
And
Yeah.
and so Rosenblatt became a Google employee for a little while.
Speaking of Google,
And speaking of Google, so they're the chair of the board
yeah,
of
the
Twitter.
executive chair. So he's an employee of the company.
Yeah, you have to explain this in a second. I'm gonna do the dumb version, which is to say the chair of the board of Twitter is a guy who was the 11th employee of Google, right? So
Yeah, somebody who I think made about a $500 million from Google. That's what I'm guessing.
So Rosenblatt is on the nominating committee forever. He actually overlaps, and potentially, you don't know if he brought him in, but he overlaps working with this guy Omid, who's the chair of the board now at Twitter. So now they're both on the board together. Now Omid is an executive chairman. So explain what that is, because it's kind of hard for me to understand.
Okay, so essentially it's an employee of the company. It's not an independent person. So it's someone gets paid by Twitter. He's an employee of the company. So he has every right to have meetings with Jack Dorsey, and Jack Dorsey can set the meeting agendas if he want and whatever. I mean, he's controlled by the company. He's not independent of anything.
So you have a situation where the chair of the board, who's supposed to lead the board, is basically a part of the company. He came from Google, was the 11th employee of Google, along with David Rosenblatt, who's on the nominating committee. Rosenblatt goes on to chair the nominating committee and bring in 2 more board members, ex-Google employees, all of whom actually overlapped working at Google. So Rosenblatt, Omid, the chair of the executive chair of the board, and the 2 other board members all overlapped in their time at Google. I don't know if they worked together, like they weren't on the same team or anything, but they all overlapped. They were at Google at the same time.
It represents the same corporate experience, right? I mean, it's the same vision, I guess.
So in fairness to Twitter, 50% of the board is like fairly diversified. They have a Nigerian-born executive who happens to be a woman, and having a black woman on your board is like, it's like what the like being like catching a leprechaun. It's like, does that happen?
Unzuckian? I don't know.
But they also happen to have the CEO of BET, who also happens to be an African-American woman. So they have 2 black women on the board from different walks of life. The other 50% of the board is actually fairly well diversified. But here's the problem, right? Because 50% of the board effectively comes from Google. They're one viewpoint of the world, a tech viewpoint of the world. To bring it back to what we're talking about, which is understanding how humans interact with technology and how humans look to technology to save them, and technology often is built by humans who fail them, right? So there's this...
And Google has all of these same problems. I mean,
every one of them.
Especially at YouTube, just so many of these serious harm problems.
And layer on the fact that the board is a classified board without getting too arcane, you explained this to me pretty simply. It just means directors are assigned different classes. It's like graduating classes, and every 3 years certain amount of them come up for vote. So you can't go in as an investor and say, you know what, this board sucks, I'm voting you all out. You can only do it in this kind of staggered
over a 3-year period,
crappy way. And there's no proxy access, meaning investors actually can't nominate their own board members. So there's all these kind of like protections in place to protect the board members, 50% of whom are from Google.
I'd say it's pretty shrewd from Jack Dorsey. The other weird thing about the executive chair that we dug into a lot is that he doesn't really make much money. He doesn't need the money. His value is, according to the like places like Forbes, is about $2 billion. He got a crap load of options to join Jack Dorsey, and he really just seems there as kind of Jack Dorsey's puppet, I guess, and maybe as the leader of the Googlers.
I mean, well, here's that's kind of the question to me. Okay, so we are looking to Twitter. This is on the back of Twitter talking about they will decide what serious harm deepfakes, which deepfakes cause serious harm, right? They're in charge of deciding that for you, the consumer.
Yeah.
That includes, they actually said they would not have removed under this policy the altered video of Nancy Pelosi when she was stuttering because it didn't qualify as serious harm.
Yeah, I think Facebook said the same thing for some reason.
Now you've got Facebook, who effectively tells you what is and is not a lie, or refuses to tell you when something is a lie and they know it. They let you decide.
Yeah.
And now you have, and they're having secret meetings with the Trump administration, and you have Twitter, whose effective revenue stream is the Trump administration, giving you constant, fiery rhetoric out of the White House, on top of the fact that their board is constructed of ex-Google employees, the majority of them. Jack Dorsey's on his way to Africa next year, leaving the board in charge. So it's these people who are going to make decisions about the company more or less on a regular basis, considering that one of them is actually an employee of the company. And the Iowa caucus happens and tech fails us. We're sitting here left wondering, how does tech fail so much? Well, maybe it's the humans behind the technology that are the reason tech is failing us humans.
Yeah. Let's end there because I want to move on to Tesla. But I think from my perspective, the point, once again, is we leave tech in control of regulating itself. Like it's always the same story.
And the people regulating tech are the nominating committees of boards, which are made up of all
that's
friends.
What I'm saying. It's tech,
unbelievable.
It's tech looking at tech, making decisions about tech. Okay, let's go to Tesla. I want to wrap up the show in a reasonable amount of time. I don't know where you want to go with Tesla, but here's the point. Tesla's stock is booming. It's just going nuts. And of course, all the founder fetish, CEO fetish headlines are out there. How Musk's Tesla stake now worth $30 billion. Everyone's getting all excited. And what do you got to say about this, Matt?
So Tesla's down actually a lot today.
Oh, okay, fine. So it's down today.
And there's one reason why. It was something that we were trying to avoid talking about because we talked about it every day.
Yeah.
It's the coronavirus.
That's why because of production in China.
Because of China. They had to delay their shipment of the Model 3s in China, and the stock is now down 14 or 15% today as a result.
Right, so this is not like a Tesla narrative. This is a China narrative.
Well, I think it is a Tesla narrative.
We talk about market narratives. Well,
here's why it's a Tesla narrative. Yeah. Here's why it's a Tesla narrative. And it's a macro of Tesla, but not coronavirus. I think it's about that sort of founder fetish, because Tesla has been a volatile sort of, not just a stock, but a volatile company and sort of narrative, like public market narrative. And it largely revolves around the fetish the markets have for people like Elon Musk, who smokes weed on Joe Rogan's show 2 years ago and gets in trouble with the SEC for talking about, taking his company private. At the same time, he's also the genius behind a lot of
He's referred to as a modern day Edison, essentially.
Exactly. He's that, right? Like, so you kind of get these two poles. Now, Tesla as a company has yet to be profitable for a full year. Like its trailing 12-month returns are all negative. It makes negative money. It takes money, and it then takes more money because it didn't make any, right? It's net negative. So when coronavirus hits Tesla, when Tesla surges all week because they had a good earnings call, and there's lots of like amazing things that people want to jump on, I'm largely a Tesla fan, but you also sort of have to take the fact that it's hugely volatile. Like founder fetish is like you can twist on a dime. Steve Jobs got axed from Apple because he wasn't Steve Jobsian enough at the time, and they put it in the hands of sort of a money manager who ran Apple largely into the ground, and they had to bring Steve Jobs back. It's just highly volatile. And you're also investing in a company because of that volatility where, like, you know, they have massive labor problems. They have governance problems. But you're effectively investing in Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, the limit of that investment is he cannot solve coronavirus. That's my hot take.
You're also answering something very human, I think, when you invest in Tesla, and a lot of people are, despite today. Because I think this is a China blip. But you're investing in your own sense of FOMO. I really think that's what this is. I think when the narrative around people like Musk is that he's Edison, you have a big FOMO. Like you don't want to be the idiot who doesn't have the stock that's worth like $8,000 in 5 years.
Well, you're also like I read a story this morning about how Saudi Arabia dumped its stake in Tesla like the day before or like 7 days before the stock took off. And I was reading stories that were like, Ron Barron, who's like this billionaire, he's the ultimate okay billionaire because he's on CNBC and he says he thinks Tesla should go to 1,000. Eventually, it's going to hit the share price is going to hit $1,000 per share. He's huge bull on Tesla, and then one breath later, he's busy talking about how he hates the wealth tax, and I was like, yeah, well, good, we're covering all our bases. We'll save humanity and just leave the billionaires alone.
All right. Yep. Anything more?
And that's it. What are you cutting me off? What is that?
Yeah, I am. No, I mean I'll give you a final takeaway on Tesla.
My final takeaway is choose your founder fetish wisely. That's my final takeaway.
All right, I like it. We'll get back to Tesla, of course. All right, let's go to on the cutting room floor. Some other headlines we're chasing.
What do we got on the cutting room floor?
What?
What's on the floor?
Coronavirus. Unfortunately, Singapore's trade minister parroting us, saying that he said this about the coronavirus outbreak. I think this is a very good lesson for everyone to really look at the supply chain resilience.
Ooh, look at that.
Hong Kong's flagship airline Cathay Pacific is asking its staff to take 3 weeks of unpaid leave.
That hurts.
Great. That's great. The U.S. Federal Reserve permanently barred Andrea Vela, a former Goldman Sachs executive from the banking industry, over his role in Malaysia's multi-million-dollar 1MDB corruption cronyism scandals.
Yeah, corruption's fun.
Yeah, we love cronyism too. Climate protesters forced BP to temporarily shut down its London headquarters yesterday. The first day in office for new CEO Bernard Looney. Looney will set out his vision for BP's climate strategy next week. Jeff Bezos sells about $2 billion worth of Amazon stock. At the same time, Amazon had to pay federal income taxes for the first time since 2016. How much is that, Matt? It's $162 million. So do the math there. Finally, the Best Buy board backs its CEO. They back Corey Berry after an investigation into an improper relationship. So she remains CEO. So
congratulations, Corey.
Yeah, that 5% of companies being led by women stays intact. Great.
He doesn't drop to 4.7. Excellent.
That's all we got, Matt.
It's a good day. I will talk to you tomorrow. If you like what you heard, subscribe to Business Pants, but also subscribe to the Market Medium because they're both us and you like us. Thanks to our team here. The two Courtneys for executive producing, and Dan Rogachnik, our advisor. John Walsh did art, and Todd Hovanek and the Asset Clowns did our music. Subscribe, rate us, send us to a friend. We need all your help. So we'll be back at you tomorrow. Thanks, Damien.